with danger and with daring rights. To the hilt we take you there, where courage meets a throat laid.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's quite something. You've got this world-renowned TED Talk speaker, someone who could just mesmerize millions with data.
Right.
Then, a highly respected scientist, a professor, really pushing our understanding of global health.
Absolutely. A serious academic.
And then, there's the sword swallower, dropping jaws with, like, an antique bayonet. It sounds made up, but this is Hans Rosling.
It really is. And what's so compelling, I think, is how these parts of him, they weren't just separate things he did. They were, interconnected. They actually amplified each other.
Exactly. That's what we want to get into. So for this deep dive, we're really exploring his extraordinary life. We're using the book To The Hilt, A Sword Swallower's History of Sword Swallowing, and also info on the Sword Swallowers Association International Hall of Fame site.
Great sources for this.
Yeah, and look, you probably know him from the data stuff, those amazing TED Talks about global development.
Yeah, the Gapminder Foundation, his work as professor of international health at Karolinska Institute. He wasn't just showing data with Trendalizer. He was trying to build this fact-based worldview. A really powerful mission.
Totally. But our goal today is to dig a bit deeper. We want to find those key moments, those maybe surprising influences that shaped him. And we're definitely focusing on the sword swallowing part. How did that fit in with the science and the public communication?
It's a great question. How did these, seemingly opposite worlds manage to not just coexist in one person, but maybe even boost each other?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Hans Rosling, born in Uppsala, Sweden, 1948. And then in 1968, he's only 20, and there's this health scare, something with his liver.
Yeah, the sources mention a liver issue, and what stands out about that?
Well, it apparently led him to stop drinking alcohol, which, at 20, that can definitely set you on a different course than maybe some of your peers.
Interesting detail.
Then, he's at Uppsala University, 67 to 71, studying statistics and medicine. Pretty standard academic path so far. But here's where the twist comes in. The spark for the sword swallowing thing. It came from a friend.
Ah, okay. Not something he just stumbled on alone.
No. His best friend in medical school was actually a magician.
Seriously, a magician? Okay, that's unexpected.
Yeah, and they apparently saw an X-ray of a sword swallower together.
Yeah.
And they were just fascinated, totally captivated.
I can kind of see that. The visual must have been striking.
So naturally, they thought, hey, let's try this.
Right. And how did that go? Were they naturals? Yeah.
Not even close. The sources say their first attempts were, total failures. Didn't work at all.
Okay, so the interest was there, but the skill wasn't immediate.
Not at all. And life kind of moved on. 1972, he's off studying public health, but this time in Bangalore, India.
And India, of course, has this really long, rich history of sword-swallowing performers.
Exactly. And that's where he saw it performed live for the first time. He witnessed actual sword swallowers there.
Ah, so seeing it in person must have reignited that interest, maybe?
Could be. He then came back to Uppsala for more studies in 73, 74. But get this, he didn't actually learn how to do it until later when he was already a doctor.
Wait, how did that happen?
From a patient.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of his patients was a sword swallower and taught him.
No way. That's incredible. Talk about a unique doctor-patient relationship.
Right. It just shows that, persistent curiosity he had. The idea stuck with him, even if the first attempts failed.
Yeah, it wasn't just a fleeting thing. It stayed there, simmering.
Okay, so then his career really takes off in international health, licensed physician in 76. Then he spends time as a district medical officer in Mozambique, 79 to 81.
Really important frontline work.
Definitely. And right after that, 1981, he starts investigating this awful paralytic disease, Konzo, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That work led to his PhD in 86.
Yeah, this is serious, high-stakes scientific work, tackling major global health crises.
Absolutely. It's a huge part of his story. But his own health wasn't always straightforward either. There were some significant challenges.
Right. The hepatitis C diagnosis.
Yeah, diagnosed in 1989. And sadly, it progressed over time to cirrhosis of the liver. And then later, in 2013, came a diagnosis of early-stage liver failure.
Which must have been devastating news.
For sure. But this is where you see that, that proactive problem-solving side of him again. He didn't just accept it.
What did he do?
He actually sought out new treatments, traveling all the way to Japan for them.
Wow, that really shows his determination, his commitment to finding solutions, even for himself.
Exactly. And he was quite vocal about it, too, concerned that these kinds of cutting-edge treatments were so expensive and restricted, he felt they should be accessible to everyone.
Fits perfectly with his focus on global equity and health access.
It really does. Unfortunately, later on in 2016, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, which is just
Yeah.
a tough reality, even for someone so full of life.
Absolutely. But before we get to the end of his story, we have to talk about that TED moment, the big one.
Oh, yeah. March 2007, Monterey, California.
He's giving his second TED Talk, New Insights on Poverty. Really engaging stuff, as always. And then, right near the end,
He pulls out an 1850 Swedish military bayonet.
and swallows it. On the TED stage.
The collective gasp must have been audible. I mean, that act, it wasn't just for show, was it? It felt like a very deliberate communication strategy.
Totally. It was like, you need to pay attention to this data. It's this important. Shocking, yes, but unforgettable.
Exactly. It cut through everything. Made his points about poverty stick in people's minds in a way that just charts maybe wouldn't have. It showed his genius for communication blending hard data with, well, theatricality.
Oh, it was jaw-dropping, the sheer nerve of it.
Yeah.
And that talk just exploded online, went completely viral.
Yeah, it propelled him into a whole different stratosphere of fame, didn't it?
Suddenly, everyone knew Hans Rosling, not just the data guy, but the data guy who swallows swords.
It was incredibly effective. Unconventional, maybe, but effective. And it really shows how those different parts of him came together.
And, the actual sword-swallowing community, they noticed too.
Ah, yes. He got official recognition from them.
He did. October 2008, he was inducted into the Sword Swallowers Association International Hall of Fame, right there in Stockholm.
That's quite an honor within that world.
And the story of him meeting Dan Meyer, the SSAI president, is just brilliant.
Oh, tell us about that. Meyer's an interesting figure himself, right? An Ig Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah, exactly. Also a sword swallower. So picture this. October 2008, Stockholm again, crisp autumn morning. Dan Meyer is there to meet Hans.
Two quite unique individuals connecting over this very specific skill.
They hit it off immediately, talking about sword swallowing, realizing they'd both seen it in India. Hans tells him the story about the X-ray back in med school, the failed attempts.
Okay.
And then Hans gets this burst of enthusiasm, that Rosling energy. And he goes, "We need to celebrate this. Did you bring any swords? Do you have one I can swallow?"
Wait, just like that, out of the blue?
Yep, spontaneous request. And Dan Meyer, he's apparently thinking, we're in Stockholm Central Station, there are people, police maybe.
Yeah, probably not the ideal spot for an impromptu sword-swallowing demo.
But he goes for it. They both whip out swords and swallow them right there. Public demonstration.
Wow, that takes some guts. What a moment.
But it gets better. Hans was apparently so impressed with Dan and his dedication to the art form, he really encouraged him. He said, "Dan, you should do a TED Talk about sword swallowing."
Really? Rosling encouraged him to do a TED Talk.
Yeah. And apparently that suggestion was huge for Dan Meyer. It really lit a fire under him.
So what happened?
Well, Dan took it seriously, studied TED Talks, worked hard on his own presentation, incorporated some of Hans's ideas, and in 2013, he gave his talk. Swallowed a sword at the end, of course.
And how was it received?
Standing ovation. Went viral. Translated into tons of languages. It was a major turning point for Dan Meyer, and it all stemmed from that encouragement from Hans.
That just speaks volumes about Rosling, doesn't it? Not just his own brilliance, but his ability to see potential in others and, lift them up. Really generous.
Totally. And the recognition for Rosling himself just kept coming. 2009, Foreign Policy names him a top global thinker. 2011, Fast Company calls him one of the most creative people in business.
Wow.
Then he gets elected to the Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences and the Swedish Academy of Sciences in 2011 and 2012. And then 2012, Time magazine puts him on their Time 100 list, the world's most influential people.
That's an incredible list of accolades. It shows the breadth of his impact far beyond just academia or just TED.
For sure. Sadly, as we know, Hans Rosling passed away February 7, 2017. He was 68. He's buried back in Uppsala.
Yeah, a huge loss. But his work, thankfully, does continue.
It does. His son Ola Rosling and daughter Anna Rosling Runland are carrying the torch at the Gapminder Foundation, still promoting that fact-based worldview.
It's a powerful legacy, using data for clarity, for understanding, for challenging those misconceptions we all carry about the world.
And like we said earlier, if you want even more detail on this incredible life, check out the book To The Hilt, A Sword Swallower's History of Sword Swallowing. Definitely visit the Sword Swallowers Association website, swordswallow.com. Lots more stories there.
Yeah. So wrapping this up, what we really see is this amazing breadth in Hans Rosling's life. He was this brilliant scientist and educator using data like nobody else to light up global issues.
Right. But he was also this performer using a really startling skill to grab your attention, to make you connect.
And it wasn't like these were separate boxes. His medical training informed the science. His commitment to global understanding fueled the data viz.
And the sword swallowing somehow became this unexpected tool that amplified everything else.
Yeah.
It made his message unforgettable.
It's that convergence, that intersection of passions that made him so unique, so impactful.
Which kind of leads us to a final thought for you listening. Think about your own life, your own interests. Are there seemingly disconnected skills or passions you have? Could there be an unexpected sword? Metaphorical or maybe even literal, who knows, that you possess. Something that could actually amplify your message or deepen your own understanding in a way you haven't considered.
It's a fascinating question. Sometimes our most powerful contributions come from combining the things that, on the surface, don't seem to belong together at all.
Absolutely. So yeah, definitely check out swordswallow.com and tothehiltbook.com if you want to explore Hans Rosling and this wild world of sword swallowing even more.
It's quite the story. You won't regret it.
To the hilt with every breath, dancing close to life and death. Stories written deep in flesh, legends born in every test. Through history's winding path, crafted with an iron grasp. Voices from a world gone past, echo in the feet they clasp.